Good afternoon and welcome to our first of 3 training videos getting you ready for the Model United Nations Conference in 2021. We're really excited that you're joining us. My name is Tyler Dorr. I'm a program director with the Center for Civic Engagement, and I am joined today by 2 of our Model UN officers who are going to help us discuss country and resolution research. So every Model UN team that is participating in the General Assembly is going to receive a country after the priority deadline. And once you get that country, you will be writing a resolution with your team in the character of that country. So today we're going to go over some general strategies for approaching research and beginning to pull together all the things that you'll need to write a good resolution and submit it before the final deadline. So without any further ado, I'll throw it over to our officers to introduce themselves.
Hi everyone, I'm Elizabeth and I go to Brentwood High School, and I am a vice president for the General Assembly.
Hi, my name is Greta. I go to USN. I will be the Secretary General of MUN Conference A. What is the UN and what does it do? That might help inform how you write a resolution. So the UN is a community of member states and countries around the world, and its 2 general purposes are to maintain peace and security among nations. So that means that the UN has the authority to pressure and punish countries with military or economic means. But don't worry, there are limits to what you can do with your resolution. And also another purpose is to improve the quality of life for people around the world. And the UN does uphold its Declaration of Rights, which is very important as the guiding document for your resolutions.
So let's expand on this definition a little bit. What are some things that the UN has done recently?
The UN Rights Chief is calling upon Afghanistan's new Taliban leader to rightfully treat women and girls rightfully without any things that happened in the past.
And I would say another thing that's pretty common for the UN to do is assist with natural disasters. So as we're recording, the UN's Migration Agency is currently working with officials in Haiti to find safe housing for the victims of the earthquake that took place in mid-August.
And also UN bodies will publish reports on the work and research they've been doing. So for example, the IPCC released a report on climate change 2021, the physical science basis, which might be an interesting document to look at if you're thinking about a resolution on climate change. Yeah, and to go on, the UN is not a world government. It can't force nations to do things that their nation's governments don't want to do. So the UN wants to maintain each country's sovereignty and protect each country's sovereignty. So UN resolutions are a suggestion, a request, or a statement of world opinion, and they can include consequences that other nations agree to, like sanctions.
Yeah, so let's talk for a minute about some things that a resolution can and can't do at Model UN. And I'll start by saying that resolutions can suggest that a state alter its behavior to be in line with UN guidance. They can request that all countries agree to a new viewpoint on an international issue. They can gain approval for a specific use of the UN's resources, be that an agency or a fund that the UN controls. And they can also change the way that the UN operates. Something a resolution cannot do, as Greta mentioned, is impede on a nation's sovereignty. Basically, you can't force a country to do something, although a resolution could create consequences for bad behavior to incentivize people to go along with what the UN is requesting.
Okay, so a resolution also should not include internal problems that really don't need the UN to solve.
The UN can also pass resolutions to start peacekeeping forces missions, basically station peacekeeping forces in different countries. And it can also set aside money for specific projects or agencies, which is probably the bulk of the resolutions that you'll be hearing about. And yeah, at the CCE's Model UN conference, students in the General Assembly work together as a team to represent one of the UN's member states. So you start by representing your country by presenting a resolution to the group and then weighing in on other countries' resolutions. And that means that the most well-prepared country teams have conducted research not only on their resolution, but also know enough about the country that they're representing that they can articulate how their country would feel about other resolutions posed to the General Assembly. And you will be showing the character of your country through the decisions, like through the stances that you have in pro and con debate, and also the questions you just ask. So lots of different factors actually influence whether your country would support or oppose a UN resolution. These factors include population, history, religious makeup, type of government, and the country's economy. So pay particular attention to how your country interacts with others on the world stage. So just what are your country's international goals? And that might influence your topic for the resolution.
So once you get your country, you need to start conducting research and narrowing down the topics that your resolution is going to address. What do you do if you have no idea where to start?
So it would be great to look at some persistent problems that are happening in your countries. This could be like a civil war that you need peacekeeping for. And for these persistent problems, it would be great if you choose one that have not been resolved or by the UN or need extra assistance from. Like using that information, you can find some possible solutions to the problems through the UN's help.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Being able to look up persistent and also current problems. So something you could do is look at the news or an encyclopedia entry for your country for context about the history behind your country. You can also think about an issue locally that your group may be passionate about. Let's say it's about income inequality. Then you can also explore that issue on a broader international context, see how other countries are handling it.
Think about where your country's positioned in the world. So sometimes you're representing a country that may not have come up in the news recently as the site of some big disaster or because there's some persistent problem there. And that doesn't mean that your country can't still influence what the UN's doing and what it does. So if you are having trouble finding a topic for your resolution, you can also think about what your country is positioned to give. Maybe there's a really great agency in your country that's doing really good work to solve a specific problem, and you want to request that the UN set up a fund to solve the same problem in different countries in a similar manner. So don't be afraid to get creative with your resolution, because you can find all kinds of ideas for ways that your country can present a resolution that would make the world a better place.
So next is where to find good information about your country. Here are a few resources that we recommend. One is the CIA World Factbook, which has one-page country summaries. Here you'll find lots of basic information like literacy rate, the population, minority groups, and a lot of information that you would use in technical questions. You can also look on the UN member state websites, and there you'll find current news on your member state, but you could also find things that they're currently trying to solve. You can also look at international news. So two sources would be Al Jazeera and also BBC News.
And kind of as we're looking at different sources, how do you all assess the credibility or bias of a source that you might be looking at?
One way would be finding multiple different sources about the same topic, and through these multiple different sources, you can assess which information is biased and which ones aren't.
The thing is looking into an author's credentials. You can Google them, look at their education or their experiences. Also look up the news sources on an interactive media bias chart, which will show you the relative bias on which side they lean.
Yeah, and I would say that one of the best defenses against bad information is to make sure that you're using a variety of sources to research your country. You don't have to get all your information from one place. And the sources that we talked about above are great starting points, and lots of times they can lead you to a bunch of other great places to find out information about your country. So don't be afraid to spend some time just kind of looking at a variety of different sources and using all of them to pull together a good picture of what's going on in your country. Do you guys have any other places that are go-to research spots for you?
I can go for that. So personally, I look on the UN news. United Nations also publishes articles about what their countries are doing. I also look for international news on Reuters.
Sometimes it's also great to look news directly from the country sources. This is especially great for English-speaking countries such as Canada, Britain, because like those you can get like an accurate information from like internal sources.
Yeah, and when you've been on a resolution team, how do you find is a good way to organize your research? How do you keep track of everything that you're learning?
Yeah, so I try to find as many sources as possible and then keep the links on a doc So then as a group, we divide the sources and then look into our own sections on our own. You typically want to keep all your notes in one place on a shared document. And it's also nice to sort information on whether it would be best answered for short answer technical question. Those questions would be like literacy rate or what is your country's GDP? And also information that is more related for your pro-con debate. These are the longer, lengthier reasoning for what your proposal is in your resolution. It's also nice to divide your research in the order that appears in your resolution. So as people ask questions, you'll know where to reference it.
Yeah, one other method I really like is if you can assemble a very quick, normally 1-page cheat sheet about your country that just has some basic facts and statistics like population, the different religious groups that are in your country, the kinds of resources that your country has, what kind of government your country has. All of those things can be helpful for you to kind of refer to quickly throughout debate. And they may inform your country's opinion on the different resolutions that are coming before the assembly. So it's good to be able to reference those kind of facts quickly before you get into all the research that has to do with your resolution.
Also, I want to note for a country resource sheet, sometimes during questioning time, right after you do your introduction, they would ask, some people would ask for your country's fact just to make sure that you have done your research. So it's always great to have your country cheat sheet near you. Okay, what makes a good resolution topic? So here are just some of the questions that you want to ask yourself. This includes, does your country want to change how other countries interact with each other? Does your country need something from the UN, or does it want to contribute something? Does your country want to change the way the UN wants to operate? A resolution should not deal only with a problem in your country, because that problem could be solved by your country's government. This includes an example would be, it is not a good UN resolution to say Hungary should build a bridge over a river in Hungary, because Hungary's government can't do that. They don't necessarily need the support of the UN. A resolution should invoice the UN or be international in nature. So an example of that would be Jamaica asked the UN to send in international humanity workers to help with earthquake cleanup. And another example would be Jamaica proposes creating a new UN task force aimed to provide food and shelter for its hurricane victims.
So what are some good resolutions or the best resolution topics that you have seen in past model UNs?
So for one, I've seen a great one on sea level rise, specifically about cities that are near a coastline, and also addressing modern issues and how the world is changing. Also, even if a topic may be overdone, the passion that you bring to it and the nuance will make it a good resolution. And don't shy away from topics that you think are just too normal, like everything, as long as you care about it, then it's a good resolution for your group.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. I think something good about the resolution that Greta highlights too is it really is international in nature. All kinds of countries are affected by rising sea level, so it makes sense for the UN to be discussing it. I would say another thing I look for to have like a good engaging resolution is when a country can really act in the character of their country. By which I mean the things that they're saying are consistent with how that country actually operates in the real world. They're consistent with the kinds of ways that that country has interacted with the UN in the past. Sometimes that may be a way that you disagree with personally, but I think part of learning about your country and learning how to represent them at the UN means learning all the different viewpoints for how you can approach problems. And that may not necessarily line up with your own personal approach, but that's all part of the learning experience.
Okay, what information do you need to write a resolution? So you need to know your committee and research the agency your resolution will use. So some committee topics would be 5 categories of things the UN deal with. These are great areas to narrow down your focus of your research and for a resolution topic, because for most resolution topics, you want to be specific, not be very broad and very general, because that really don't help you sell your point. of wanting the UN's help. And another great place to use is page 35 of the Model UN manual. So here are 5 committees and some things that fall under each committee. So number 1, disarmament and international security. So this includes regulation of biological and chemical weapons, combating religious pressures on political stability. I feel like this one would be great for some of the countries in the Middle East, as a lot of those countries are dealing with this problem. And the last one would be combating terrorism. For the second committee, it includes economics and financial. This includes regional trading blocks, rights of migrant workers, information technology and international context, and global economic stability and UN's financial health. So this would sometimes include you asking for the UN for more money to fund some kind of project that would better improve like your country as a whole and other countries as well. So the third committee includes social, humanity, cultural. So this includes protection of humanitarian aid workers, international regulation of medicinal drugs, infectious disease / pandemic, and regulation of child and prison labor. So for the fourth committee, it includes special, political, and decolonization. This includes measures to prevent environmental activities, controlling organized crimes across the border, facilitate peacemaking and civil wars, and protecting terrorism. For the last committee, it includes administrative and obligatory. This includes review efficiency of the UN budgets and member fees or new committees or any agencies. So the last one, there's an additional part is that bodies and agency of the UN. This is a very important part. So when you want to think about this, you need to think about which parts of the UN your resolution may require. Your resolution may set up a new body or agency, but dozens of agencies already exist. So look around and see if you need to create a new one or if your resolution can be handled by an agency that already exists. Some example includes the WHO, which stands for World Health Organization, the IMF, which is the International Monetary Funds, and UN peacekeepers.
So there are more than 300 different UN agencies and bodies. Some of the ones Elizabeth mentioned are the ones that come up super frequently. The WHO deals with a lot of stuff around infectious diseases and pandemics. The IMF, or International Monetary Fund, handles a lot of loans and financing that goes out to different countries, either to help support them in infrastructure projects or other kinds of environmental efforts. But what are some other UN agencies or bodies that come up frequently at Model UN for people to look into?
So one major agency is the UNICEF, which is the UN International Children's Emergency Fund. That's a very common fund that people ask for money or workers that would help with like children's education or poverty and like nutrition, that sort of thing.
Another one that Elizabeth mentioned earlier is the UN Peacekeepers, and this is kind of a military force that aims to de-escalate and end conflicts in different places. So sometimes UN peacekeepers can help facilitate the protection of civilians or different groups that are being threatened. And although it can sometimes be difficult to convince the UN to send peacekeepers into a situation, sometimes that is what different situations call for. So it's definitely something that you can pursue with your resolution. I'll just kind of ask in closing, what are some things that you like to research before you represent a country?
Personally, I think it's nice to explore the culture of your country. So just beyond the religion or politics, looking at traditions or how society functions like on a normal day can help you get a better sense of the places that you're not familiar with. It's great to keep an open mind about different countries and also take this as an opportunity to explore another country and not just the politics or just the overarching big picture.
Something I'll add too is I always like to look at what the UN is already doing in my country. It gives you a good sense of how your country typically interacts with the UN, and it will help keep you from duplicating work that's already been done. And it's just a really great way to learn more about the different things that the UN does around the world, and in the region that your country is operating in.